He bet everything on speed. He raced against men, against the past, and against his own conscience. He just didn't know that the only gear capable of saving him was reverse. Prepare for a no-holds-barred urban race, where every turn exacts a price, and not every victory lies in crossing the finish line. This is a fictional story, created purely for entertainment. But if you've ever felt that revenge was the only way out, if you've ever pushed life to the limit thinking that just moving forward would solve everything, this story is for you. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any part of this intense story. And comment on where you're watching from now. I want to know how far this race will go. Fasten your seatbelt, because after the first second, there's no turning back. Revenge was the only way out. That's what hammered in his head while the tachometer screamed in the red and the engine roared like a wounded animal. The wet asphalt reflected the city lights like a neon minefield. Every sharp turn was a challenge. Every second, a wrong choice could be his last. He drove on the edge of the car, of his sanity, of his own life. At 180 miles per hour, there was no room for doubt, only for hatred. The radio crackled, cut off by interference and distant sirens. Behind him, two black cars emerged like predatory shadows. High beams tuned engines, drivers who didn't make mistakes. They were there to finish the job they had started months before. It all started that night. The ambush, the warehouse, the smell of gasoline mixed with blood, the cold smile of the man who destroyed everything he loved and still shook his hand afterward. "You drive well," he had said, "but you don't drive forever." Now he was driving. The gears shifted quickly. Second, third, fourth. The car trembled, but obeyed. A classic Japanese car, lightweight, prepared for urban rally, suspension finely tuned, turbo screaming as if it also wanted revenge. A sharp left turn appeared too late. He pulled the handbrake, felt the rear end slip. The car slid sideways in a violent ballet of rubber and smoke. He passed within inches of a lamppost. The pursuers tried to copy the maneuver. One of them almost lost control. He smiled for the first time that night. But the smile was short-lived. The street ended in a dead end. A closed iron gate. High walls. No alternative route. No sign. No chance. "Damn it," he whispered, his heart trying to leap from his throat. The black cars slowed behind him, like predators savoring their cornered prey. He felt the weight of his mistake. There was only one possible gear in that situation, and he wasn't ready to accept it yet. Throughout his life, he had learned one thing: never look back, never retreat, never engage reverse. The engine still roared, begging for forward, begging for attack, begging for more speed. But the wall ahead wouldn't budge. And it was there, with a smell of burnt rubber, the enemy headlights advancing, and the entire past knocking at the door, that he realized something terrible. He believed that winning was always about moving forward. But that night wasn't about winning. It was about surviving. And he didn't yet know that the only gear that could save him was reverse. Time slowed down for a cruel instant. The tachometer needle dropped, the engine sputtered, and the half-second silence seemed to last an eternity. The headlights behind him opened like hungry eyes. They were certain of victory. The alley was a concrete coffin, but he took a deep breath. He remembered his father saying, many years before, on a dirt road lost in the countryside, "Rallying isn't about always going forward, son. It's about surviving the turn." The gearbox clicked. Reverse. The car lurched violently. The steering wheel vibrated in his calloused hands. He didn't accelerate. He let the car roll backward, feeling every inch of the space he still had left. One of the pursuers had moved too far forward, too confident. Mistake. He floored it. The turbo woke up screaming. The rear end whipped. The car shot into reverse at an absurd speed, tires screeching like blades on the asphalt. The men in the black cars hesitated for a millisecond. In street racing, hesitation is death. The first car tried to brake. Too late. A sharp impact. Metal against metal. The pursuer spun, hit the wall sideways, and passed out in a burst of glass and sparks. The second swerved by centimeters, went up onto the sidewalk, lost its alignment. He took advantage. Steering wheel all the way to the left, precise countersteering, quick brake, first gear. The car turned like a cornered animal finding crack in its cage. It emerged from the alley spitting smoke, heart pounding, hands firm. But the city didn't forget, nor did he. Each street awakened memories. Each tunnel carried the echo of that night when everything crumbled. He didn't just want to escape. He wanted to hunt. He wanted to confront the man pulling the strings behind those black, licenseless machines. The Radio V. The car started squealing again. This time a voice. "You still drive like you used to," it said too calmly. "But you're going too fast into the past." He clenched his teeth. He would recognize that voice anywhere. "Where are you?" he growled. A short laugh from the other side. "Where it all began. Old Port Track. Midnight. If I make alive." The signal died. He looked at the clock on the broken dashboard. 16 minutes to go. Enough time to conquer the city, or be swallowed by it. He shifted into fourth, then fifth. The car no longer asked. It commanded. Each shift was a promise. This race wasn't an escape. It was a summons. Behind him, new headlights appeared. Faster. More prepared. More deadly. He smiled coldly. Revenge was no longer the only way out. Now it was destiny etched on the asphalt. And the entire city would be the circuit. The clock was ticking faster than his heart. Each swallowed-up block was a game of Russian roulette. The city transformed into an urban rally track. Speed bumps became jumps, alleys became improvised chicanes, traffic lights were just colors passing in blurs. He knew that labyrinth like the back of his hand. He floored it. The car jumped over a bump, landed crookedly, suspension complaining, but firm. Behind, three shadows, stuck close. They weren't amateurs. Light cars, tuned traction, synchronized drivers. One of them tried to block his path. He responded with courage and calculation. Short brake. Weight transfer. Dry steering. The pursuer took the bait, went straight, scraped the curb, lost speed. The other came from the outside. He shifted into third and let the turbo push like a punch in the back. He drove through a still-open market, people running, shouting. There was no time to apologize to the city, only to cross it alive. The radio crackled again. "You were always in a hurry," the voice said. "That's what lost you that night." His hands gripped the steering wheel. He remembered the warehouse. The smell of burnt oil. The dry gunshot echoing. The fallen body and the silence afterward. He remembered believing that driving faster would solve everything. It didn't. "Today, I'll finish," he replied. "With you or without you." He reached the port's elevated highway. Cracked concrete, long curves, wind cutting through. A forgotten place, perfect for settling accounts. Down below, the dark sea seemed to wait. The black cars attacked together. One from the left, another from the right. He felt the side impact, the car sliding dangerously towards the guardrail. For a second, everything hung. Then he did the unthinkable. He eased off the gas. He let the car lose traction just enough to correct. Sometimes, winning meant not accelerating. He resumed. He shifted into fourth gear. The engine sang hoarsely. He pulled away from the grip by centimeters. One of the pursuers crashed head-on into the guardrail. The other insisted, glued to the track, maximum pressure. The track narrowed. Blind curve. No margin for error. He breathed, remembered his father, the dirt road, the forgotten advice. He turned before the ideal point. He skidded. He saw the wall approaching. He engaged reverse. For just an instant. Enough. The pursuer expected acceleration. He received confusion. He spun. Smoke. The end. Relative silence. He stopped at the top of the overpass. The clock read 11:59 p.m. Ahead, the old port track illuminated by solitary spotlights. A car waited, its engine off. Door open. "He's arrived," said the voice, now live, echoing off the concrete. Finally learned how to come back to win. He got out of the car. His legs trembled, but his gaze was firm. The race was over. The reckoning was only beginning. The sea wind brought salt, rust, and old memories. The port looked like a forgotten arena, containers stacked like walls, flashing spotlights, long shadows ready to swallow any mistake. His car cooled slowly, metallic creaks like the ticking of an old clock. Ahead, the other vehicle waited, low, wide, too expensive to be legal. "Get out slowly," said the voice, now close, human. "We're not in a hurry." He got out. Each step echoed off the wet concrete. The man emerged from the shadows with the calm of someone who had never really raced. Dark suit, light eyes, the same smile he remembered from the warehouse. The smile of someone who orders killings without getting his hands dirty. "You've always been fast," the man said. "But speed without a head is just noise." "You ordered it," he replied. "You stole my life and left the keys on the ground." The man opened his arms theatrically. "I offered a race. You accepted. Simple rules. Whoever wins lives with the truth. Whoever loses learns." The radio of a distant truck crackled. A ship whistled in the distance. The port was slowly waking up, ignoring the duel that was about to happen. The man walked to the luxury car and ran his hand over the bodywork as if petting a dangerous animal. A lap around the port circuit. No shortcuts. No weapons. Just machine and courage. Whoever loses gives everything. Names, routes, accounts. Whoever wins, S. Clean up. He smiled, but it was an empty smile. "You never play fair." "Today I'm playing it safe," the other replied, getting into his car. The engines roared almost simultaneously. The sound echoed among the containers like caged thunder. The smell of fuel filled the air. An old crane turned slowly, as if observing. Improvised start. One headlight came on. Another went out. They set off. The first corner came sharply. He went inside, braked late, felt the rear end slide out. His opponent came from the outside, a more powerful car, violent torque. On the short straight, he was swallowed up. On the next tight corner, he returned the favor with precision. Cleaner line, better exit. The port circuit was treacherous. Cobblestone sections, spilled oil, treacherous puddles. He knew every flaw. He had trained there when he was still dreaming, before the warehouse, before the loss. His opponent pushed on the straight. He lightly touched his rear. Warning. At 170, warning becomes a threat. He kept the car straight, breathed, didn't answer. He waited. The curve of the red containers came. Total shadow. No lighting. He turned off the headlights for half a second. The other hesitated. That was enough. He dove inside, scraped paint, came out ahead. The radio crackled. "You're better," said the voice, more tense now. "But you're still driving angrily." "Today I'm driving with memory," he replied. Last lap. The sea appeared on the left. The wind pushed. The car lost grip. He corrected smoothly, like an old gesture. The opponent pushed too hard. He escaped a meter. He recovered. They stuck. Final straight. Guardrail on one side, black water on the other. The opponent accelerated with all his might. He could do the same. He could go forward, bet on strength, on impact, on the violent end that always haunted him. But no. He remembered the alley. He remembered the lesson. He downshifted, and then engaged reverse for an impossible instant. The car decelerated abruptly. The opponent, blinded by speed, passed too fast. Final mistake. He moved forward again, regained traction, took the line. The other lost control on the final curve. The car spun, hit the guardrail, and stopped inches from the sea. Silence. Engines shutting off. Waves crashing. He stopped beside it. He got out. The man staggered out, defeated not by the car, but by his own certainty that winning always meant moving forward. "It's over," he said. "Now you're going to give it all back." And, for the first time, the other didn't smile. The harbor breathed again. The sound of hot metal creaking, of waves crashing, of unsteady footsteps on cracked concrete. He remained silent, watching the defeated man lean against the dented hood. The mask had fallen. Only fear remained, raw human. "You promised names," he said softly. "Routes. Accounts. Now." The man let out a short laugh that died in his throat. Do you really think I'm in charge of all this alone? He didn't answer. He just turned on the recorder on his cell phone, placed it on the hood, and waited. The wind blew strongly, raising salty dust. The other man began to speak. The names came like stones: politicians, businessmen, drivers paid to fix races, bribed police officers. The routes came: smaller ports, swap schedules, containers marked with invisible ink. The accounts came: banks abroad, front men, figures that bought silence. Each word was a piece of the rotten city. And the warehouse, he interrupted. Who pulled the trigger? The man swallowed hard. It wasn't me, it was Elias. My right-hand man. He thought you wouldn't come back. The name hit him like a belated blow. Elias. His racing buddy. The man who had taught him to read a wet track. The same one who disappeared into the night in the warehouse. The ground seemed to tilt. He breathed. He didn't shout. He didn't advance. Revenge learns to wait. Where is he? Preparing the next load, said the defeated man, too quickly. Today. Warehouse 7. Distant siren. Not from the port. From the city. Someone had called. Perhaps the defeated man himself had a plan B. They always did. You promised to get away clean, said the man, trying to bargain. Victory is victory. He turned off the recorder. Clean doesn't mean unpunished. He took the keys from the luxury car and threw them into the sea. The sound of the splash was short, definitive. Your race ends here. Mine continues. He got into his own car. The engine responded tired, but faithful. As he drove away, he saw the man fall to his knees, the city coming to collect its due. At the port exit, his cell phone vibrated. A short message, no number. Warehouse 7 doesn't forgive mistakes. He smiled slightly. Revenge is expensive. It demands tires, it demands nights, it demands friends. But sometimes it returns something that seemed lost: control of the steering wheel. He shifted into first gear. Then second. The city opened up ahead, another lane. Not to escape, to hunt. And this time he knew. Going forward wasn't enough. When necessary, reverse would still be there. Warehouse 7 emerged like a sleeping giant by the water's edge. Cold lights dripping from the ceiling. Trucks lined up like pieces in a dirty deck. He parked far away, turned off the engine, and stood for a second in the dark. The silence here was different, heavy-armed. He walked in. The floor creaked. There were recent tire tracks, fresh oil, boxes too open to be just boxes. The smell of hot metal and salt indicated haste. Cargo leaving in minutes. The radio in his pocket crackled, an open frequency. Short voices, old codes. He recognized the pattern. Elias had taught him that years before, when he still called it friendship. A car pulled away outside. Another responded. The clock ticked. He climbed the side ramp, passed behind a switched-off forklift, and found the makeshift circuit between stacks of containers. A short, tight track, made for quick deliveries and clean escapes. For Elias, racing had always been a language. "I knew you'd come," said the voice, echoing from above. "You still prefer to enter through the shadows." Elias stepped off the platform. Older, harder gaze, professional smile. The same worn steering wheel hung from his wrist. "You should have stayed dead," he continued. "That was the deal." "They made the deal without me," he replied. The engine started. 2 prepared cars, light, aggressive. There was no audience. No referee. Just concrete, containers, and a route that ended at the docks. 1 lap, Elias proposed. No weapons. Like before. He nodded. They entered. The start was a shot. Elias took the lead, knowing every bump. He maintained pressure, waiting for a mistake. The track narrowed. Faulty lighting. Elias braked too late and saved by millimeters. Almost perfect. Then came the wet section. The sea invaded through the grates. He remembered his father. The dirt road. He felt relieved. Elias accelerated. He lost traction for half a second. Not enough. They stuck together. Light contact. Warning. Elias responded with a closed door. Old anger emerged. He contained it. Not yet. Last curve before the dock. Crosswind. the abyss to the right. Elias forced his way through. He had two choices, go forward or think. He engaged reverse in the blink of an eye. The car decelerated brutally. Elias went too fast. He tried to correct. Too late. His car crashed, spun, and stopped sideways, a few meters from the edge. He braked to the side. He got out. Why? Elias asked, his voice broken. We were a team. A team doesn't sell out for a load, he replied. Siren approaching. Elias closed his eyes. It's over now, he said. The track demands its due. He got back in the car. He left before the city arrived. In the rearview mirror, warehouse 7 shrank. The circle was closing. The revenge didn't end there. But the race changed hands. The siren wasn't one. There were several. Blue and red lights streaked across the night like blades. He left warehouse 7 with the engine roaring, knowing that now he wasn't just racing against ghosts of the past, but against the entire city on alert. Bridges rose on the mental map. Tunnels closed. The road shrank. All units, target fleeing towards the center, hissed the open radio. He turned everything off. Just engine and instinct. He took the side road, went against traffic for a few seconds, jumped a median, returned to the flow like a mistake no one could point out. A roadblock appeared ahead. He didn't brake. He shifted into second gear, pulled the handbrake, and swerved between 2 police cars with centimeters of clearance. Glass shattered. Screams were left behind. But the car already felt it. Turbo hot. Suspension groaning. Tires worn down. Revenge exacts high interest. On a narrow overpass, a van tried to block him. He touched lightly, used the weight of the other vehicle to gain angle, and escaped via the access ramp. The van spun. He didn't look. His cell phone vibrated. An anonymous message. You won the wrong race. He knew the number now. The man from the port had friends. And they didn't bet, they collected. He drove down to the old neighborhood. Narrow streets, treacherous cobblestones. There, power didn't matter. Lightness and composure did. He slowed down, read the street, let the pursuers run each other over. One crashed at the corner. Another lost control. The city was doing its job. He arrived at the square with the disused train tracks. Dead line. Perfect. He stopped for a second. Listened. Nothing. Too much. He saw headlights from all 4 sides. No sirens. Professionals. Pulling over now, you can still breathe, said a voice over the loudspeaker. He looked at the impossible path ahead. Rails, sleepers, concrete steps. It wasn't a track. It was an exit. He shifted into first gear. Then second. The car jumped onto the rails like a wounded animal. Each impact ripped away a promise. Behind, 2 tried to follow. One broke its suspension. The other persisted. The final stretch came. An old yard, a closed gate, a high wall. An alley again. The same old story. He smiled. Reverse. The car sped back, using the rails as a guide. The pursuer braked too late. Collision. The end. He turned, sped forward, smashed through the rusty gate, and disappeared into the labyrinth. He only stopped when the engine begged for mercy. Silence. In his backpack, the recorder. The evidence. The cost paid. He knew. Tomorrow, the city would wake up different. Not clean, but less blind. Revenge left its mark, but it also left a choice. And for the first time, he considered slowing down. Dawn painted the sky a pale gray when he parked in an abandoned warehouse, too far to be accidental, too close to be safe. The engine died with a long sigh, as if giving thanks. He remained motionless for a few seconds, feeling his body finally reach the night he had just crossed. The news began to pop up on his cell phone. Arrests at the port, warrants, seized trucks. The evidence spoke for itself. The scheme crumbled like old concrete. But the mastermind, the invisible thread, still breathed. The message arrived without fanfare. Old road. Final kilometer. He knew it. The exit from the city, abandoned stretches, curves that forgave no error or lie. One last circuit. One last adjustment. He changed 2 tires in the dark, tightened nuts with tired hands. He didn't prepare the car. He prepared his mind. Sometimes, winning meant arriving in one piece. The old road greeted him with silence. Crooked guardrails, worn asphalt, marks of old tires, untold stories. Up ahead, a car waited with its headlights dimmed, like eyes that don't blink. The boss got out. No suit, no theatrics, just weariness and calculation. "You ruined a city of businesses," he said, "but you can still leave." He thought about everything he had lost, and what he still had. "Business doesn't kill," he replied. "People do." The man pointed to the road. "An uphill, a downhill. Whoever arrives decides." They entered. There was no counting. The road dictated. Long uphill. He didn't push. He let the car breathe. The other driver pulled ahead. The downhill came treacherously, a crosswind. He maintained his line. He recovered centimeter by centimeter. Sharp curve. Shadow. Loose stone. The driver skidded. He saved. Barely. Last straight. The man accelerated fully. He could have copied. Instead, he lifted his foot for a moment. He read the car. He read the fear. In the last meter, he engaged reverse for an impossible second. The other car passed by at high speed, too fast. He went off the track. He crashed. He stopped alive. He braked before the impact. He got out. There was no applause. There were no police. Just the old road. "It's over," he said. "And it will stay that way." He turned his back. He started the car. He drove off. In the mirror, the sun was rising. Revenge wasn't the end. It was the curve. And he learned late, but he learned. Sometimes, the gear that saves doesn't take you forward. It takes you off the track. The road was left behind like a film without credits. The sun rose slowly, gilding the worn asphalt, revealing marks that the night hides. He drove without haste now. Each gear change was a new agreement with himself. The radio was off. The world, finally, at a low volume. In the city, the domino effect continued its course. Headlines spoke of falls, arrests, belated confessions. The tape recorder had fulfilled its role. Elias had been taken. The man from the port, silenced by his own crumbling empire. None of this brought back what had been lost, but it lessened the weight on his chest. He stopped at an old roadside gas station. Bitter coffee. Trembling hands, finally at rest. He looked at the car. Scratch paint, worn tires, honest scars. He wasn't a winner. He was a survivor. A woman approached the counter, glancing at him sideways. "You come from a city," she said, without asking. He nodded. "It changes those who pass through there." "Or reveal it," he corrected, paying for his coffee. Outside, he received a short message. Last pending. Coordinates. A small warehouse, off the map. The past insisted on knocking when the door seemed closed. He could ignore it. He could follow. The sun invited a clean escape. But he had learned the difference between fleeing and leaving. In the warehouse, an old car waited. No weapons, no tricks. Inside, an envelope, photos, receipts, a name that hadn't appeared before, the driver. The small cog that turned the big one. Sometimes the city protects itself like this, by placing evil in ordinary hands. The man emerged from the shadows, tired, eyes downcast. "I didn't want to," he said. "I only drove." He breathed. He remembered the old warehouse. The gunshot. The silence. The anger that pushed his foot. He thought about the lesson that had cost him dearly. "Nobody only drives," he replied. "But I'm not speeding today." He handed the envelope to the man. "Take this. Confess. Live with it." He left before the other could speak. Some races don't demand victory. They demand breaks. He returned to the car. Started it. Driven to a dirt road viewpoint. Stopped. Looked at the road ahead. Long, imperfect, possible. Revenge had brought him this far. But it wouldn't take him any further. He shifted into first gear. Then second. The engine responded serenely. In the rearview mirror, the city was just dust. One last adjustment was needed. Not to the car. To him. And for the first time since the alley, he knew. The end didn't need to be quick. Just real. The dirt road creaked under the tires as he descended towards a valley. No signs. No hurry. The world seemed bigger when there was no chase and men, or when he realized how much he had lost trying to control it. He pulled over to the side of the road and turned off the engine. The silence didn't weigh him down. It was comforting. He opened his backpack. He took out the empty recorder, the last piece of evidence already handed in, and placed it on the stone. He didn't destroy it. He didn't need to. Some objects only serve to remind you when you no longer need to remember every day. The phone vibrated one last time. Ended. That was enough. He walked to the wooden fence, watched the valley light up in the sun. He thought of his father, the dirt road, the simple lesson that took him a lifetime to understand. He thought of the night in the shed, not with hatred, but with distance. Memory doesn't scream when it finds a place. He returned to the car. He opened the glove compartment. Inside, a spare key and an old, scribbled piece of paper. Get out of the curve alive. He smiled. He started the engine. He didn't accelerate immediately. He checked the tires, temperature, mirrors. Preparing is also a form of respect. He engaged first gear, then second. The car responded without urgency. At the fork ahead, 2 rusty signs. City to the left. Mountains to the right. He stopped. The city promised answers, belated applause. Perhaps easy work with the invisible fame he never wanted. The mountains offered anonymity, honest curves, roads that didn't require bloodshed to teach. He engaged neutral. He breathed. He engaged reverse. He backed up 2 meters, better aligned the car on the dirt track, not to return to the past, but to choose without stumbling. Ahead, to the right, the mountains. He continued. The asphalt turned to dirt, the dirt to stone, and speed became conversation. He learned to listen to the car, not to command it. He learned that limits exist to be respected, not challenged every time. Hours later, he stopped in a small village. Children were playing near the open workshop. A mechanic looked up, assessed the car, and nodded. Does it need adjusting? He asked. He thought for a second. Always, he replied. As the sun set, he helped tighten nuts, change oil, and align wheels. His tired body smiled inwardly. At night, he went to bed early. He slept soundly. In his dream, there were no sirens, no flashing headlights. There were curves, there were edges, there were choices. Revenge wasn't destiny. It was the ignition. The race ended when he decided to leave the circuit. And the lesson remained, etched like a trail in the gravel. Not every victory is about moving forward. Sometimes it's about knowing how to engage reverse, to finally drive away.